Hey, Chris from Codify Academy here. In this video, I want to review a few of the best practices for CSS. Just like HTML, it emphasizes keeping your code lean and well organized. First up, we have organizing code with comments. CSS files can become pretty long, and the larger the file, finding and editing styles will become more difficult. We should organize our styles into logical groups, and then before each group, provide a comment noting what the following styles are going to pertain to. One of my favorite techniques is to use comments to build a table of contents at the top of a CSS file. This will help you and others locate your styles easier. You can also do this in HTML for similar results. Number 2 we have is making sure CSS uses multiple lines and spacing. And by that we mean each selector and property and value pairs should be on their own lines. In our bad code, we can see everything is on one line, but if we look at our good code, we've given each selector their own line, and each property and value has their own line. Notice we're also indenting those declarations inside of the selector. Doing this is going to make it easier to read and to edit. Number 3 we have is using proper class names. As we mentioned in the last video, make sure class names relate to the content of the element it wraps. We want to try to write our selectors similar to how CSS properties are written, so they should be all lowercase, and if we have multiple words, just use a hyphen in the middle. Don't create classes like the one in our bad code. They might look good now, but they will definitely cause confusion. Number 4 we have is building proficient selectors. The longer a selector is, the more likely it's going to break that CSS cascade. Instead, we want to try to use more direct selectors and only nest them 2 or 3 levels deep. Here in our good code, we use a maximum of 1 pre-qualifier and a key for those selectors, and that's what you want to aim for. Number 5 is using specific classes when we need to. While applying a class to a targeted element may create more code within HTML, it will render your code faster. In our example, our selector is very long, but we should just apply a class name to that element so we can style it. Number 6 is using shorthand property and values. One awesome feature of CSS is most properties have a shorthand alternative. In our bad code, we use 4 different declarations to apply margins all around. But instead, we should use the shorthand property with a different value count to apply these margins. And when you're setting just one value, shorthand is not the way to go. In our bad code, we wanted to apply padding on the left, and we use shorthand. But instead, we should have used padding on the left so it didn't override any other padding. Number 7 is the use of shorthand hexadecimal color values. When you can, use the 3-color shorthand hexadecimal color value. You should also always use lowercase letters in a hexadecimal color value. The idea is to remain consistent, prevent confusion, and embrace the syntax of CSS. Number 8, dropping units from 0 values. One way to easily cut the amount of CSS needed is to remove the unit from any 0 value. It doesn't matter which length unit you're working with, just use a 0. Adding the unit is unnecessary and provides no additional value for the browser. So in our good code, we can see when the value is 0, there is no unit that follows it. Number 9, moduleizing styles for reuse. CSS classes allow styles to be reused anywhere. If a section of news is presented inside of a box that includes a border, background color, and other styles, a class of news might seem appropriate at the time. However, if you want to try to use the same styles for a section of events, the class of news doesn't fit this case anymore. So instead, we could just use a class of feature box, and this would make more sense, and we could use this across the entire site. That's it for now. And just like our HTML best practices, make sure these CSS best practices are visible when you're coding.